Good tidings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Landy Lodge podcast. Before we launch this episode, we have some special people we need to thank, those special people being the sages of the lodge, those who donate monthly to keep the lodge moving. If you'd like to become a sage of the lodge by donating as little as $1 a month, you can find a link in the episode description, be it whether it's on YouTube or any of the audio platforms. So, thank you to everybody, thank you to the Sages of the Lodge, and thank you for tuning in. And without further ado, let's get on with it. Ladies and gentlemen, the sickos and the normies, welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings, to episode 102 of the Landy Lodge. And who is on episode 102? Why, it's a bolt from the blue, Andy Brew, here to talk about The World Ends With You. So what's up, Andy?
Dude, that could not have made me happier, man. You know that's my favorite NPC of all time, right? Like,
Absolutely.
He's the best. Dude, not much is up. Thanks for having me in the lodge again. We're talking about TWEWY today, so I've even got my Zeta Slow shirt on. I'm ready to go, man.
Well, you got me beat. I'm just vanilla wearing a V-neck. So,
hey, you know what? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that. So we're primarily going to be talking about the anime today. But before we do, Neo just dropped. And without you giving anything away, what are your first impressions of the game? How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, so I was telling you a little bit earlier, but I'm only on day 5 right now, and I am streaming it on my channel. So if y'all want to come hang with the Brew Crew, where we got it on the YouTube and everything, so we're hanging. But
check the description, homies, right there.
But so honestly, I can already tell it's gonna be probably one of my favorite sequels to a game I've ever played, just because how much love and just thought and you can tell there's a lot of love put into this sequel, and just the characters are all amazing. Like, there hasn't been one character yet that I was like, whatever. Like, they're all great. Like, all the new characters are phenomenal. I would say like my 3 favorite characters right now are all new characters in the game, honestly. Besides Sho Minamimoto, I don't think anyone can top him for me. But yeah, no, I love it. It's really good. It deserves all the praise that it got. I know I saw all the reviews, a lot of really high scores, and very much deserving. Even though, again, I'm only on day 5, so I'm not super far into the game. But yeah, it's incredible. It's really good. If you're a World Ends With You fan, you need to play this game. And even if you're not a TWEWY fan, you can still get away with playing this game. I would say that, even if you've just watched the anime, or even if you've never even played TWEWY and you want to give it a shot, the way that the story is set up as of right now is, there's references to things, but as of right now, it's its complete own story with its own new characters, and you can be okay with just jumping right into that. I'm sure later on it's going to pick up and kind of explain okay, yeah, so it's going to connect to the previous game. But as of right now, it's really shining a light on these new characters that they introduced, and they're great. And the voice acting, oh my gosh, dude, the voice acting, this is some of the best voice acting I've heard in a while in a game. And it's crazy because I'm pretty sure that all of these voice actors, they're not very well known. I didn't recognize really a lot of them. And so to see that, to actually experience this game brought to life by these voice actors, and how great of a job they do with delivering every single line. Oh man, it's an experience. So I definitely recommend playing it. Of course, I'll always recommend, hey, get the story for TWEWY before playing Neo so you can appreciate it more. But it's a really freaking good sequel so far, and I'm so excited to continue playing it. So.
Well, I have one quick question. As someone, I've both played TWEWY and watched the anime, but I will say, playing TWEWY for the first time, I felt like everything in that game was an A minus, except for the combat. For obvious reasons, I played a Switch port. I didn't play it on the DS. Same. So I want to ask you, how does the combat feel on console as opposed to having this sort of handheld structure?
Right, dude, it feels very, very satisfying. Like you
Yeah.
feel whenever you're, let's just say, like, so there's like a pin that allows you to like drop boulders on enemies. That was in the first game. It's in this one too. You feel like you're dropping a boulder on an enemy. Like you feel powerful doing it. It's set up in a way where it's set up like TWEWY, but without the motion controls or anything. It's just like, okay, like your pins are just assigned the buttons. So like you can hit multiple buttons at the same time to do certain actions at the same time. So like, cause you play in a team. And so it's like, yeah, it's really good. You feel a game that can make you feel good whenever you're like beating the heck out of enemies. That's a very good feeling to have in a game, especially a game like TWEWY, where, of course, with the previous one, with the motion controls, it's kind of rough for a lot of people. Me, on the other hand, like I actually I'm literally in like the 5% of hectopascals that actually enjoyed like playing with the motion controls, just because like I had a Nintendo Wii growing up. And I haven't played my Nintendo Wii in a while. Actually, I don't even have it anymore. So it's just like, this was a nice change of pace from what I've been playing. And I was playing a lot of Final Fantasy and stuff like beforehand. And so I was like, you know what, this is kind of nice. I don't mind this. But I would say most people would say like, yeah, like motion controls aren't it. I wouldn't say bring them back. Actually, please don't bring them back. Like it was good. It was fun. I had a good time with it, but the way that the gameplay works on console is really sweet. It's just it's a lot better, I should say, and it's a lot more satisfying.
Well, that's great news, at least for me to hear, because like I said, whether we're looking at the characters, the plot, the music, all of that was like an AA plus for me in the original. It's just the combat ended up feeling a little bit repetitive.
And that's totally understandable.
Mundane. But it's good to hear that the sequel doesn't have this issue, which gets me all the more excited. But I want to touch on something that you brought up earlier about how you may not need to be exposed to the first one before playing this one. You can jump in blind.
You should. It's very recommended. Absolutely.
And this is why this is what I really wanted to talk about today. And you let me know if you share this sentiment. I think The World Ends With You anime is pure genius. Not necessarily in just like its quality, even though I think it was a very high quality show.
Right.
I think it's genius because, anecdotally, let me tell you a story. I have a friend of mine who he saw the trailers for Neo and he's like, oh, that looks really cool. Let me go play the first one. Tried to play the first one on the Switch port, just couldn't get through it. He didn't like it. And he's like, yeah, I guess this isn't for me. But then the anime dropped. He watched the full anime and he bought the game on the first day. He bought Neo day one. And I think one of the reasons, and I hope Square Enix keeps this formula going, where it's like, hey, we can catch everybody up with this franchise by building out something like this anime, which was incredibly digestible, so well done. I felt like, there were some things they either skipped over or glossed over, but they touched on all the main points, I felt like. And I felt like it was a really digestible way to get the story, so that if you don't want to play the original World Ends With You because you feel it's outdated, there's an anime there for you that will catch you
12
up.
12 episodes, and it nails every single thing that you need to know, honestly.
Exactly. And I think, you have to think about it. There are thousands of people who probably would not have been able to play Neo or wouldn't have had the desire to play Neo because the first game wasn't for them, who now are just like all in on The World Ends With You.
Right.
Thanks to this sort of move with the anime. I hope Square Enix does this with other properties too, because I think, lately you're seeing it, especially with games like Final Fantasy VII Remake. Square wants to be very cinematic. They really want to be like an interactive cinematic experience.
Yes.
Are you getting those sort of vibes from Neo?
In terms of cinematic, I'm gonna say like, because I'm thinking of like Final Fantasy VII Remake and like even like Kingdom Hearts and stuff. I wouldn't say
as much as those.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like. Well, let me say this first, because whenever I say like, hey, like you don't need to like you should play TWEWY or watch the anime. Like I don't want people to think like, hey, like you can just like, you definitely should at least watch the anime and get the story. But because I know a lot of people who probably don't get into it is because like the gameplay, like the gameplay is kind of rough. So like what I've been kind of telling people is like, hey, play like the demo for Neo, and maybe even play the first week of Neo, because there's not, they don't even, I mean, I'm not done with week 1 or however many weeks there are, but like, again, they don't go into super heavy stuff from like the past, from TWEWY yet. At least I'm assuming they will. And so you can maybe see how you like it, and maybe go watch the anime and get the story. But yeah, so with Neo TWEWY, I will say they really, I think it's the voice acting, honestly, in terms of like, that really, because it doesn't have like that cinematic feel like some other Square games do. However, during like the scenes, whenever it's, it just shows like the 2D sprites, and then they're talking, and like some of the scenes are voice acted, some of them are not. It's totally cool. But it's honestly the expressions on their faces that make it so fun. Like there's one character in the game that her facial expressions are literally like the funniest expressions ever, and it brings them to life without actually having to like make every cutscene like animated, an actual cutscene, right? Like you get life. You can see them come to life just from the way that the sprites are animated and the facial expressions. TWEWY was like that as well, but I think because now this game is voice acted, it's even more so brought to life in that sense. I wouldn't say like I get that cinematic feel as in comparison to other Square Enix games, like how other Square games are, just because like that's not really TWEWY's thing. But
TWEWY gives me more of like a graphic novel feel, almost like an interactive graphic novel.
Right, but there are actually cinematic cutscenes in the game. Like there was one so far that I remember that was.
Does it have the same animation style as the anime? Because I thought the animation style in the anime was so beautiful and unique. I've never seen that sort of cell shaded anime 3D sort of style before.
Right, it does not. At least I don't think it does. I'm not really visually perceptive like that. But no, because the anime was more like CGI animation kind of thing, which is crazy in itself. But yeah. It stays within the confines of Neo TWEWY. But it works. It works. So
it works. Well, let me ask you, what do you think? Speaking of the anime, what do you think was the anime's strengths and what was the anime's weakness?
Yeah, so strength, definitely, I will say, definitely it definitely made me feel a lot of similar things that I felt playing TWEWY. So like, and the biggest thing I can think of is Shiki's entire week, like just like going through Shiki's week, and like the emotion, even though it felt pretty crammed in because they got to cram it in 12 episodes, I still felt the same, like I had the same emotional feelings that I did understanding Shiki in the anime, as well as understanding Shiki while playing the game. So I think the anime does an incredible job of literally just giving you everything you need to know, and like basically giving you the story without having to play the game. Because you can watch the TWEWY anime, and honestly, you don't really have to play the game. At least that's how I see it. Some people might think differently. That's
what I actually think is so genius about it. Because again, like there's a barrier of entry for the game. It's, whether you're willing to learn these controls and get through it. And the game can be, if you don't get a handle on the gameplay, the game can be quite difficult, especially in those final days on the last week.
Oh, that fight and the final boss too is tough.
Yeah,
it's a tough one. I had to bump it down to easy and bump my level all the way up. It's tough. I would say too, like, so I would say a weakness was honestly like the fights and like kind of like all like the battle scenes. Like there wasn't, and like I'm not really watching it for that, I guess, because it's like, all right, I'm getting the story.
Yeah, kind of stuff is fluff at the end of the day. Cool fluff.
But yeah, but it's like, oh, hey, here's some noise. Let's take them out. And then it's like, da, ha, ha. All right, the fight's over. And then we get on with the story. And then I think the coolest fight, honestly, was, I'm not just saying this because he's my favorite character, but the Minamoto fight. Because like it was, you know, and like it, even the final fight at the end was, it was like, all right, like whatever. I mean, I'm not watching the anime for the fights and stuff. Now, it's incredibly well animated, don't get me wrong. It's so well animated, but it's just like the fights are just kind of there because it's like they have to be, and it's like, all right, they happened, and now let's get back to the story, you know. So I would say that's definitely a weakness. And yeah, I mean, it did a good job of summarizing the story. I would still say, like, if you're really interested in TWEWY, maybe try giving the game a shot again, because there's so much that it didn't go over in the anime that's in the game. And there was actually one thing that they definitely changed was, and this is, I mean, obviously anyone who's watching this is probably, you know, spoilers ahead, right?
Spoilers on the 14-year-old game if you haven't guessed.
But
we'll keep you clean bill of health on Neo, but the other one,
we're
nothing held back.
Yeah, we won't spoil. I mean, again, I just started Neo, but so no spoilers for that here. But one thing that I remember, because I recently just rewatched like the last couple of episodes of the anime, just because I was like, oh yeah, like, you know, I just want to like make sure I got it before Neo. I started playing Neo and stuff like that. They actually cut out in week 3. They, you know, in the game, there's actually repercussions for Beat turning against the Reaper. So like in the game, he actually has like a timer. Like he doesn't have like a, I mean, they all have like the timer for like as they're in the game, but in the game, he actually only has like 5 or 6 days to live because he went against the Reapers, and they don't talk about that at all in the anime. They just completely left that out. So it's not only just like in the game, because in the game you're like, all right, we're trying to find the game master in 6 days, but we're also trying to make sure Beat doesn't die, because like he's also on a timer as well. So that's something that they cut out that I noticed. It's not a big deal, but it's like kind of like ups the stakes a little bit, you know?
Yeah. And again, there's things like that in the anime that were either removed, glossed over, not brought up, that aren't crucial to understanding the story, but like you said, raises the stakes and, you know, makes things a little bit more interesting. Now, here's a big one I got for you, because this is what I'm starting to, because I'm seeing a lot of hype around this game. You know, there are people who starved for 14 years waiting for the sequel, and neither you nor I are them. We've kind of hopped on this train in the last year or two. Do you think this is Square's next big property? Do you think this gets up, maybe not to the level of Final Fantasy or Kingdom Hearts, but do you think it starts rolling with like the Niers, the Nier Automatas, the Nier reincarnations of the worlds? Do you see TWEWY getting elevated to that level of status now that we have the first game, the anime, and this new game, Neo? Because at least from the way Square is acting, they really want this to blow up. Like, what other property has gotten a full-fledged anime that was loyal to the story? I know Final Fantasy 15 got like some of that, but that was
they
Final
had Kingslave,
Fantasy.
and then I think like Brotherhood or whatever, or I don't even know what the other thing was.
But again, that's Final Fantasy. That's their bread and butter.
Of course.
And now here they are giving TWEWY that treatment. It seems to me Square wants this to blow up, but let me ask you, do you see it getting there?
By the way that Neo is going so far, yes, I do. Yeah, because here, and I remember them even saying like that they want to make TWEWY a series, right? And I think like even with you know, with the Switch port of TWEWY coming out, and then, you know, people who have not had access to it on the DS who are playing it now, you know, I don't know what the sales were on that, to be honest, but like I'm assuming that there was a pretty decent interest in it. I know I was interested in it. I know you played it. And so I think like, I'll say this, I think Neo TWEWY is Square's only shot to get this thing really rolling. And I think they're succeeding because the way that, well, not even just the way that they've marketed it, but like, again, the way that it's going, I hope this becomes like like how like not maybe not Kingdom Hearts level, but like how near like
Yeah.
like it becomes its own series where it's like, oh, in a few years we're gonna get a new TWEWY
There'll be a
game,
new TWEWY. Yep.
right? Because they made their intentions clear that they want to do that, and yeah, I think so. And by the way that it's going so far, like I don't know if I want to say I like it better than the first game, but in terms of actually playing the game, oh my gosh, I'm having so much more fun playing it than I'm not saying I didn't have fun playing TWEWY, but like I really played TWEWY for the story. And again, I said this earlier, I enjoy, like I'm one of the few who actually had fun with the motion controls, but like I'm having a blast playing
Yep.
Neo TWEWY. Like there's so like, and again, go play the game like to find out what I'm talking about. But I'm not sponsored by Square or anything either. So, but I just really love this game a lot. Yeah, I really think it's going in that direction. Absolutely.
Well, let me ask you, because I think this game's biggest obstacle, not this game, this franchise's biggest obstacle, and I can never understand why, but it seems to, at least right now, I'm certain Neo will change things, but let's talk about pre-Neo. It almost seems to be struggling to have its own identity and stand on its own 2 feet. And that's not at the fault of The World Ends With You. It has the style, it has everything that you would need to achieve its own identity, but it can't seem to escape being compared to Persona. It can't seem to escape people being like, oh, it's like a Kingdom Hearts. It's a branch off of Kingdom Hearts. And it's, I think that's going to be this franchise's biggest challenge, because for some reason, even though it so clearly has its own style, aesthetic, for some reason, it can't get out of the shadow of these other properties. And I don't understand why. Do you think we have a breakthrough with Neo where people will stop doing that, and maybe they'll understand that, yes, The World Ends With You characters were included in Kingdom Hearts in the same way the Final Fantasy characters are? Like Cloud and Tifa in Kingdom Hearts, they bear no consequences for the Cloud and Tifa in remake or OG.
Right.
But I feel like some people,
but then it's like whenever Neku pops up in Kingdom Hearts, it's like, are we gonna see him like Sora and TWEWY? But like you don't think about that like in terms of Final Fantasy, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. It's a great question, because I've never played Persona actually. So like, but I get it, because it has a very similar aesthetic with like the whole, I would say honestly, I would think OG TWEWY probably stands out more from Persona than Neo TWEWY does. Just because
I would agree with that.
Yeah, just because OG TWEWY it's 2D. It was, I mean, obviously it was touchscreen, or it was like the touchscreen or whatever, the stylus on the DS, there it is, and motion controls on the Switch. But like I would say, like it definitely, I think people will always relate it to Persona, and I don't think that's going to change, because Persona is so big. And I've never played Persona. I don't know the history behind it, besides like, hey, there was Shin Megami Tensei, and now there's Persona and like stuff like that. But like, honestly, I don't really think, at least for me, I don't think it has to stand out. And what I mean by that is like, if you play TWEWY, if you actually play it, even if you play Neo TWEWY, which I would say looks definitely a lot more like it would be Persona, with it being 3D and like things you can
3D
do,
and
like,
in Shibuya and those sort of overlaps.
But like, if you actually play it, it's nothing. And like, again, I can't even say that because I've never played Persona, but I've watched people play Persona, right? And
I mean, you could just leave it as turn-based combat is already like, that's what Persona is all about, with the exception of Strikers. Just right there, you're already getting a glaring difference. And like, I see as someone who has played, I
was just going to ask, like, someone who has played Persona, like, what do you think about that? Because I think you'd be able to answer that a little bit better than I could.
So, like, it's there. Like, I get it. I see where it's like, yeah, maybe one of the design, like, how do I put it? If you were to tell me The World Ends With You was aesthetically Persona influenced, I'd be like, yeah, I could see it. But if you also told me that there was no aesthetic influence, I'd be like, well, yeah, I could see that too. It sort of treads this line, I think, and I'm guilty of it too, because I've recently discovered Persona in the last 3 years, and it's one of my favorite series now. So when I saw Neo, I was like, oh my God, more Persona-esque things.
Yeah, like, right.
But I think that's just my excitement really getting in the way. There wasn't whole lot of depth to that reaction.
Yeah.
I think you're right in the sense that it doesn't really need to. If anything,
Right.
like
But I get
World
what
Ends
you're
with
saying, as in like, are people ever going to stop like comparing it to Persona, or are people ever going to
or Kingdom
stop being
Hearts.
like, hey, that box art that we saw from the Mora had the same sky as the box art in Kingdom Hearts 3. So like, is TWEWY and the Kingdom Hearts universe like connected? And it's like, well, now that we have other sides of reality, like you couldn't even really say
Can
that.
I tell you my tinfoil
Like,
hat theory on
yeah,
that?
for sure.
It was a genius marketing tactic.
I agree.
Because it got
yes.
go.
No, I think we're gonna say the same thing, because
Yeah.
like I saw that and I was like, that's pretty crazy. But and I know people are gonna take it out of proportion, because if you and I know anything about the Kingdom Hearts fandom, everything is always blown out of as much as we love to make these crackhead theories. We always blow things out of proportion. I'll be the first to admit that. I'm in the fandom. I've done it before. But when I saw that, I was like, yeah, that's it's not connected in any way. Now, if it does end up somehow being connected in some way, sure, whatever. Like, that would be crazy. But people were saying things like, oh my gosh, TWEWY is part of the Kingdom Hearts universe. And then that was kind of bothering me, as in like,
me too.
TWEWY's its own thing,
Right.
like, no, it's not part of the Kingdom Hearts universe. It's its own thing. And that was like what I was kind of bothered by. Now I get it. People were joking around, just making theories.
And excited. Like,
exactly, you're excited and stuff like that. But no, I agree. I think it was really just a marketing tool to get people like, whoa. Because obviously Nomura designed like the characters and he did the box art. So it's like, so people were like, oh my gosh, like, so I think it was genius. I think
so too. I think it literally went down that they had a box art and then it was probably like a night sky. And then somebody was like, hey, but look at this. And they just dragged the background from like the Kingdom Hearts file.
Like the background is exactly the same, dude. Like,
no, it's the same thing. It is drag and drop. You cannot convince me otherwise. I really think there was probably another sky on that box art, but then somebody was just like, yeah, but look what this looks like when I drag this and put it there.
Right.
And people were like, well, that looks better. And then someone's like, but that's Kingdom Hearts. And then someone from marketing was like, yes. Yes.
Considering how big Kingdom Hearts is now, and like considering that, TWEWY made an appearance in Kingdom Hearts, that doesn't make TWEWY a part of the Kingdom Hearts universe. That would be like saying, oh, because Cloud and Tifa are in Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy's a part. No, it just doesn't make any sense.
You mean we're not going to enter the Nomuraverse, that like World Ends With You, Kingdom Hearts 4, and Remake Part 2 are all going to converge into one thing?
As much as I would love that, if something like that happens, it would be exclusively just the Kingdom Hearts. It wouldn't be like, oh, these are in the same universe. No. Like, if TWEWY comes back in Kingdom Hearts, which I would, oh my gosh,
I think it's a guarantee, honestly.
I think so too, and I really want to see it back. It's gonna be just in Kingdom Hearts for what Kingdom Hearts is. It's not gonna be like, the universes are actually merging. It's not gonna be
correct.
So
because there's gonna be no way to actually keep track of that. Right. But I think in many ways the fact that like this game, for whatever reason, drew in Kingdom Hearts comparisons, drew in Persona comparisons, I think it serves it right now, because it really helped get the name out there. It really helped a lot of people who, I'm sure there's plenty of Kingdom Hearts fans who weren't planning on getting this game, but then they saw the box art and suddenly they're like,
and they're like, oh my gosh, it's phase 2, the next game. Yeah. I'm joking, but you know what I mean. I'm sure some people have thought that, what was I gonna say?
I was just gonna say that it serves it now, but I hope that by the time we get to the end of Neo, that like World Ends With You could just stand on its feet. Right? Because like, look, Remake Part 2, Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2, nobody is comparing that to another series. Nobody is saying that Sora's going to appear, you know? So it's like, I would like to see World Ends With You almost transcend that and be like, no, this is its own thing, clearly. One thing I'd love to talk about.
Yeah.
Whoever this genius is that spooked the whole internet with that the Sora character file, the character model.
Yep.
That was the greatest thing I think I've ever seen.
So, because people
I'm sorry.
weren't people saying that was like fake, like recently, people were saying it was fake, or no? Was that like, because like I saw it, and I was like, whoa, okay, like this is, I'm not gonna be that guy, but this is kind of weird, and it's Kingdom Hearts 3 Sora specifically. So like, I think I remember seeing on Twitter people were saying like, oh, it's fake.
I think the person who made it came out and was like, hey, I made this. It's fake. I did not expect it to blow up.
Right. Yeah. I figured that was the case because I remember seeing that. But then people were like freaking out, like, oh my gosh. Like, now, would I love to see Sora in TWEWY? I would love to see Sora in TWEWY.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't want it to have any connection to what's happening with Quadratum and Kingdom Hearts 3, but like, oh, even just like a reference, like, hey, there's Sora on like a little poster. That's kind of cool. But then people would take it out of context and be like, oh my gosh, and then formulate all these theories and stuff. But yeah, no, I saw that on Twitter and it was really funny. I was just laughing. I was like, somebody would do this. Like this would happen, you know.
Hey, no, my gut reaction wasn't that it was like confirmed. I was like, I think I've gotten to this point where it's like Square Enix is one of those companies that I actually think understands their fan base and understands the internet and understands everything that's going on with
you can tell by the way they marketed this game 100%.
By the way they marketed this game, the fact they had a DMCA free stream back during E3, like they're really tapped into the culture, which is funny. That's
TWEWY is all DMCA free as well. Even OG TWEWY. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. You can rip pretty much all the songs and you won't get hit with anything.
Right.
So they're well aware of how all of this works. So when I saw that Sora character model in my head, I'm like, they just want Kingdom Hearts fans to buy this game.
Yeah,
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I was like, this is just
There's even mechanics in the game. I won't spoil it for you. I don't know how many of the I don't know if you watch any of the trailers or anything.
I've watched the trailers, so
okay,
I've seen a good handle of it.
So like there is a remind and a dive mechanic in the game that was showed off in the trailers. And it's like, come on. Like because like again, it's no connection to Kingdom Hearts, but they want Kingdom Hearts fans to buy this game 100%.
Well, we're a big honeypot, man, and we're a bigger honeypot than we've ever been. So I kind of understand it. It's going to be I don't want to say it's going to be a tough road ahead for TWEWY. That wouldn't be the right way to put this. But if their ambitions are as big as they say they are, because I think the director, I don't know who said it in an interview, somebody on the team said in an interview, it's their goal for this to be as big as Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts.
I hope so.
That's what they're shooting for.
And it looks like it's going to be like that.
Well, I was going to ask, what do you think they need to do to achieve that?
Oh, man, that's a hard question because
it's possible Neo could be enough. It's possible Neo could be enough.
It could be, yeah. And I honestly don't even know if I can answer that until I finish Neo. Because I I don't know the inner workings of what happens when developing a game or like what, especially developing a sequel to a game. Part of me wants to say it like needs to stand out on its own, but like I personally think it does, just like and I think the biggest thing that stands out for me, honestly, it's the characters in the story. Like, and the way that the game plays, it's very unique. In comparison to like Final Fantasy or Kingdom Hearts, I think TWEWY has a insanely strong cast of characters that like, I don't think they need any work in the character department, to be completely honest. And like the story is really good. I really just think like, I don't know. I honestly think it just comes down to just getting more people to buy the game.
Yeah.
Getting more people to buy Neo and to see that like, hey, this is its own thing, and it's something that's really, really cool, I
think they should keep up with the trope that every game gets its own anime. Yeah. I think that would be genius, and that's something that can help it stand out because, again, someone please correct me, but I don't know of any game series that's doing that right now, where it's like, here's a game, and now you're going to get an anime based on the game.
Scarlet Nexus actually is doing that.
Okay.
Which is a game that I've been playing. It has nothing, it's Bandai Namco, nothing related to TWEWY or Square, but like that's a game that I'm playing that is doing that. They're like, hey, and it's cool because like they give you incentive to watch the anime by giving you in-game rewards if you watch the anime. And so what's really cool is like there's like this place in Scarlet Nexus. This is a super small tangent because I really like this game a lot as well. There's like this like restaurant, and there's this person in there who's like, hey, if you can find this code that's hidden in the anime, like just somewhere. I haven't watched the anime yet, so I have no idea actually how this works. Come back here, enter the code, and then we'll give you like some rewards in game for it. And so it's like that's an incentive to watch the anime. Have I watched the anime yet? No, I haven't, because I kind of just want to play the game, all of the game first before I watch the anime. And I think they're releasing it like weekly or something. Or you could just, again, just Google the answer and then just type it in, because I'm sure that's a thing. But like it gives people incentive to like watch the anime, you know? And so like I know they're doing that. Final Fantasy 9 is getting like what, a TV show? Like that's directed towards kids. Even though I don't know how the heck they're gonna do that. I'm excited for that.
I think it's gonna be in the way Avatar was directed towards kids.
Right, right. Know? Yeah, I think so too. And if that's the case, then it's gonna be really good. You know,
it's good. And this is this is the kind of stuff I see Square doing now. I think, you know, you started to see it in the mid 2000s when they were releasing things like Advent Children and stuff like that, where it's like they really wanted to start getting cinematic about it. They don't seem content with just being a gaming company. Yeah. They have high ambitions, and I think it's only just the beginning. Like that Final Fantasy 9 anime, this World Ends With You anime, I think it's only the beginning. And I think it was the success, and I could be wrong, this is just me spitballing, but I think it was the success of that World Ends With You anime that got the Final Fantasy 9 show the green light.
I think so too.
Because we heard about that
possibility.
Because we only heard about it shortly after that. Also, another random conspiracy theory. You remember all those rumors about the Kingdom Hearts anime?
Oh, well, wasn't it a Disney Plus TV show or something?
Something like that. I really think it was someone who didn't know what they were talking about, and they saw The World Ends With You anime.
Oh, that's really funny, actually. Now that actually kind of makes sense, because I thought that was a while ago. Wasn't that like a while ago?
But again, it
takes a while to make this stuff. So like that would kind of make sense. That's really funny. But I don't know how someone, even if you're not a fan of like TWEWY, I don't know how you can mix up Kingdom Hearts and like TWEWY. I don't know. It's just
some people are bad at their jobs, Andy.
That's the thing. I guess so. That is really funny. As much as I would want like, you know, a Kingdom Hearts anime / TV series that's like kind of like, I think I've talked about this with you before. I don't know if it was on a podcast or whatever, but or I talked about somebody about this, but I was like, I would kind of like it to be like the Mandalorian, where it's like own separate characters, take place in like the Union Cross timeline, introduce us to a whole new separate characters, have its own story going on. Don't even bring up, maybe have a couple nods and references to other things, but then like the end of the season, it's like you see like Ephemer or Brain or something like that. And I think that could be something that would work out really well. You know?
I got one better for you. One better for you.
Hit me.
You do the show with a new character, and you get to the end, and it's another Lushu reveal, and you realize you were watching one of Lushu's bodies the whole time.
Oh, that's wild, dude. You sold me. Square Enix, you need to hire this man right here to write.
I'm an idea man. I throw me in the room. I don't have any particular talents, but throw me in the room and I'll talk some nonsense until
that's like sticks. How I am with stuff. Like it's like, okay, like I know like the basics of video editing, and like that's it. And I have like ideas, but I can't do much outside of that. I'm the same way, dude. Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
So we still got a little bit of time left here. Is there anything with World Ends With You that we haven't talked about that you'd like to talk about?
Man, who's your favorite character?
Ooh, that's a great question. Damn.
I already know mine. I've already told you mine. But there are some new characters I will say that are fighting for that top spot right now. I will say that for sure. Yeah.
I really think it's Joshua.
Joshua
or Mr. Hanakoma. It's one of those two.
Yeah, Daddy Hanakoma,
Daddy
as
Hanakoma.
as I have called him.
But I want to say, Neku.
Mhm.
Neku is one of the best like lead protagonists I've seen in a very long time.
I
Like,
agree.
and I
Yeah.
actually think the anime did a better job with him than the game did. Like that
You think so?
scene,
Okay.
that scene where what's her name, Izuki, tempts him and says like, "Hey, if you kill your partner, I'll let you out of the game." And that scene where he's conflicted and then decides he's gonna kill
Oh
Shiki,
yeah.
like in the anime, that was portrayed like
Well,
it made my
also,
stomach sink, dude.
also at the very end,
With the
whenever
Joshua scene,
when they're having the showdown, because I don't remember him saying. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anyone in the comments or even here, like, I don't remember him actually reaching out his hand and seeing like actual. I don't know if like seeing actual tears down his face or whatever. I don't know if he had tears on his face. Maybe that was just me imagining it. But like reaching out his hand saying, "I trust you." I don't remember that in the game.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think you're right
And
because
I
the way
thought
I'm
that
remembering
that was genius.
yes,
That was absolutely genius. And then you see the expression on Joshua's face after he shoots him, and he's like, "This dude just blew my mind."
Yeah.
Like, you know, like he passed the test, right? No, Neku is like, I love Neku's. He probably has one of my favorite character developments in gaming
because it feels so real.
Because it is like he's very relatable, right? Like he's somebody who's like, all right, like, you know, don't talk to me. I've got my headphones. I'm putting my headphones on. I don't want to talk to anybody. I just, you know, I don't care about people. I want to shut everybody out. But as he has these experiences with Shiki, especially Shiki, like Shiki, Joshua, and Beat, you know, he starts to kind of realize, wait, there's something really beautiful about people. And like, there's something, and I really love my world. And so like, and Joshua was like pretty set on like, I'm going to like erase Shibuya, but you know what? Let's play a little game. I'm going to have a proxy, and basically if he can convince me that Shibuya needs saved, then like, yeah. And that's what happens. And it's really cool because like very small parallel. But it kind of reminds me of Moses and God in the Old Testament, of like, essentially there's this moment in the Old Testament, and like, if y'all know me, I'm a big Bible guy. I'm a Christian. I love talking about this stuff anytime I can. Because of course Joshua is the English name for Yeshua, which is Jesus, right? But it's, you know, Jesus doesn't actually, it's not like Joshua and Jesus are different, but it's like, you know, it's just the Hebrew translations and stuff. Right. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. What I want to say is there's this parallel, there's this moment in the Old Testament where Moses is essentially he leads the Israelites out of Egypt. Everything is great. And then he goes and meets with God on a mountain. And I think that's whenever he gets the 10 Commandments. And then he comes back, and then everyone's like, oh my gosh, like Moses is like, he's not here. We don't know what to do because like we don't really have like a leader. So they build this calf, this golden calf out of gold, and they start worshiping this calf. And it's a false god. You know, it's not God, because it's like, oh, the golden calf let us out of Egypt, whatever. And then Moses is like, I think this is, I want to make sure I'm not getting my stories mixed up, but essentially God is like, I might as well just do what I did with Noah in the ark. I'm just going to wipe out everybody.
Round 2, baby.
Fresh, you know? And then Moses is like, wait, no, like, remember your promise that you made. Remember the covenant that you made with Abraham. Like you said, you would never do it again. And it even says like, and again, there's multiple ways to interpret this in the Bible. But it's like, in a sense, like God changed his mind, but it's like, you know, was God really just kind of testing Moses? And you see a similar thing here with Joshua and Neku to a T, to an absolute T of like, what's so great about Shibuya? I mean, okay, not maybe in that sense, but in the sense of like, Joshua's like, I'm going to erase Shibuya, and then Neku being the chosen one, and then Moses being the chosen one to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, kind of changes Joshua's mind in a sense, and be like, you know what? All right. Like, of course there's obviously differences. I never want to say that like Joshua and God are a direct parallels, because I actually don't believe
You
that.
know, they're not synonymous, but
Right.
what you're
There
saying
are
is a
similarities
parallel in the
there.
relationship is what you're seeing.
Yes, in the
Yeah.
relationship, yes. And so I love that. And so seeing that connection made me very happy. But also that was one of my favorite things about the game was like, one, learning that Joshua was the composer, but also because he's such a great character, but also just like, you know, kind of seeing like Neku, who is just there's nothing special about him. He's a normal guy, right? Who honestly has been inspired by not just Shiki, but even Hanakoma, who said, listen up, the world ends with you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you want to enjoy life, expand your world.
Mm-hmm.
And to see him have an impact on Joshua is like, it's really great. Like, I just love it. And that makes him one of my favorite protagonists, to be honest. Like, just seeing the way that, like, again, that he affected, like, somebody who you would think his mind couldn't change, and then his mind changes, right? Because he's Joshua is seen as like, he's this omniscient being of like set in his ways, but it's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't even know where else we were going with that, but
I mean, listen, I got
yeah,
a couple things that
Yeah.
you know, based on what you were saying.
for sure.
And here's one thing, talking about Neku and his sort of transformation. This is something the game did better than the anime. Is yes, the relationships with all those people had a big part in changing him, but one thing that very interestingly changed him was his ability to read people's minds. And when he saw what
Oh,
everybody else was
yeah.
thinking, he realized like, oh my God, I'm just as full of it as they are, or
Mhm.
you know, I don't have any real values. And look at these people, they're not as
Right.
full of it as I thought. And to see that, it's like, you know, you think about how would you change if you were able to read people's minds? And
Yeah.
Neku's given that ability, and you know, it changes him in a way that would originally be unprecedented for him. And the last thing I wanted to say, the thing I love the most about The World Ends With You, at least the first installment, we'll see how Neo ends, because you know, I love a game where I get to the end of it and I really feel like it has a good moral compass. I really feel like it leaves you like
Mhm.
a better person.
Such a good ending too. Yeah, like it's very satisfying. Mhm.
Exactly. And going, you know, when you were talking about the Moses and God and the golden calf, I think what it comes down to is this lesson of it is better to liberate one innocent man than to punish 1,000 guilty ones.
Mhm.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like it didn't matter that Shibuya was rotten. There was one ripe fruit, and it was
Mhm.
Neku. So we're
Mhm.
not going to burn the forest down because there's
Right.
one ripe fruit. And if there's one ripe fruit among 1,000 rotten ones, the
Right.
forest is still worth saving.
And you don't realize it, but right there, you're actually preaching the gospel right now, because
You don't got to tell me twice.
because that one right fruit for us is Jesus, and Jesus took the wrath of God on the cross, right? So again, parallels.
Parallels.
You know me, I love it. But yeah, like and even with reading people's minds and like seeing that, like, also there's also moments where, like, you know, because the noise feed on negativity. And so there you'll find some people in TWEWY who are like, they are like literally surrounded by noise, and Neku actually has to scan them and eliminate the noise. And so even doing something like that, of like, it's like Neku, you know, he's like, wow, some of these people are just as full of it as I am. But then in a sense, he's kind of taking on the burden of taking the negativity away. And, you know, kind of seeing that like people can change and stuff like that. I mean, of course he had something to do with it, but, you know, I think also seeing like just him seeing that people can change. And even with Joshua seeing that, like, you know what, these people like can change. And like, yeah, it's a great game. Like, it's got a very satisfying ending. I honestly, I recommend it to anybody. Even like the anime is great, but man, if you can play the game, play the game.
There's a little bit more, a little more juice in there.
A little more juice.
Bit of a
Yep.
juicier fruit. But I you know, we've talked a lot about The World Ends With You today and about its future and where it's going. I feel pretty confident, even having not played Neo yet, I feel pretty confident this series is about to take off.
Me too.
I feel pretty confident it's
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
it's gonna blow up. And you know, maybe it won't be as big as a Kingdom Hearts, but I think something Square on
It can be its own thing. You know, it doesn't. I don't think it has to ascend to like certain levels of
it
like
doesn't.
Persona, even though that's like Atlas, but like, you know, just like other games, like, where it doesn't have to ascend to like Final Fantasy. It doesn't have to, but like I think what is really going to keep this keep this series going, it's going to be the fans.
Yep.
Of course. Like it's going to be the interest, and it's going to be the people who are actually participating in and consuming the content, because
Yep.
you
and
can,
the merch too.
yeah, oh my gosh, and the merch, and like that's another thing too. You could just see like a character that aesthetically just looks super cool and be like, all right, I'm buying the game. And like you're playing the part and like making this thing its own thing, you know, like even, oh my gosh, like I like Shoka. So like your loving fiance drew me a Shoka emote for my Twitch channel. I don't even have a Kingdom Hearts emote on my Twitch channel. Like, and that's my favorite series of all time. But what I want to say is like I had her draw me that Shoki emote, which she did a great job with, by the way. Like seriously, I could not be happier with it. Because I saw this character and I was like, this character looks amazing. And now I really want to play the game more and get to know who this character is.
Well, she had me at the Mr. Mew hoodie.
Yes,
that's
the
what she had me.
Yep, the Mr. Mew merch. That's it. So, and it's just like that just shows too, like character design really does go a far way. Like I guarantee you, like there's probably some people out there who probably wouldn't get into TWEWY if they looked at the cover and were like, oh my gosh, like these characters are great, you know, like like they look really cool. And it's like I think character design goes up.
I know when I was younger, that's what led to like half of my video game purchases was looking at the cover art and going, do I think this looks cool?
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah.
But
I agree.
But yeah, man, coming up on time, I'll ask again, second lap, is there anything that we haven't talked about yet that you want to touch on? And if not, why don't you go ahead and give out some closing thoughts on TWEWY?
Oh man, I mean,
surprisingly fun to say TWEWY, even though it's like such a mouthful. But
yeah, the world ends with you, TWEWY. You know, it can be a mouthful. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think like literally my closing thoughts are, you know, if you like a game, or I would say rather a story with really good characters and really like impactful themes, you're gonna really like The World Ends With You. And you're also gonna, especially like, you're really gonna like Neo TWEWY as well. Cause like, that's like The World Ends With You is like, you know, you kind of need that as like the primer. And then Neo TWEWY is kind of just like, all right, let's, no pun intended. Actually, no, this pun is intended. Let's just expand our world.
Yeah.
Like, let's just expand it with new characters, with new gameplay, with new mechanics, with new things, whatever that looks like. Yeah, if you're looking for a good, like, honestly, I'll be real. I think it's a 10. I think the characters are 10 out of 10. I really do. If you're looking for 10 out of 10 characters, The World Ends With You is the game to play. Because I got hooked on The World Ends With You because I got introduced to them in Kingdom Hearts. And I thought, I was like, oh, these are just, what Final Fantasy game are they from? And then it was like, and then I did research. I didn't find this out till years later because I was like, okay, because I never grew up with Final Fantasy either. And so I was like, oh, wait, this is its own thing. Well, now I'm interested in playing this because like these characters are really cool in Kingdom Hearts. And playing TWEWY, I was like, dang, like TWEWY, I think is my 5th favorite game of all time. Wow. Like, to be completely honest, like I put it up there. Yeah. All my favorite games are Square Enix games. Like I've sold my soul to them at this point, which is kind of whatever now, you know, it's kind of a thing, but yeah, like it's just great. Like I'm biased. I will say this, I am biased towards it, but like I played it for the first time this year. Like I didn't grow up with it and I love it so much, you know, and like I say I'm biased, but like we have to keep in mind, like people are biased for a reason, you know. I'm biased towards it because I genuinely think it's an incredible game, you know, and I'm like that with like Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy VII, especially Final Fantasy VII Remake. Like I'm biased towards them because I genuinely think they're great, you know, and I think Square Enix has something really good going for them with all of these games. And I really hope that TWEWY can ascend to this level of where Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy is at. Again, it doesn't have to. It does. I don't really think it has to, but I really hope it does. You know, because like you're always gonna have TWEWY fans that like you're always gonna have TWEWY
stuck
fans.
Around for a decade and a half,
right? Like you're always. the fans are going to be there, right?
Mhm.
And the fan base is only going to grow, I feel like, but you're always going to have fans to come back to. But of course, like, you know, if you don't have people buying your game, probably going to stop making those games.
Yeah.
Hence why I'm like, that this is why it pains me that we haven't gone a Sly Cooper remaster like series yet, because like it's like, oh, like I'm still here, but like everyone else has given up on it. I don't know, but like some of us are still here. I don't
I'm
know.
in the same boat with Star Fox, man. I'm
Yeah, right.
I don't care.
Right.
Just make it and I'll buy it. Just do it, please.
Right. Yeah. So
But yeah,
that's
man,
hard.
look, I'm right there with you. You know, as
Mhm.
someone, I haven't touched Neo yet, but just between the first game and the anime, I know I'm all in. I
You're
think it
gonna like it
will
a lot.
ascend. I think it will ascend and become a bigger series and a bigger franchise. I think Square is on fire lately.
Yep.
Honestly, lately it seems like unless it's Avengers, they can't really miss.
Mhm.
But yeah, I look forward to playing this game. I look forward to seeing the future of The World Ends with you. But you
Yeah.
know, before we wrap it up here, I just want to remind everybody that you can follow Andy Brew both on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. I know I said both, and that was 3, but forgive me. His links are all in the description below. whether you're
I
listening on
appreciate it.
Spotify or you're watching on YouTube, I got
all
all
good.
his links in the description below. Please check him out. Great variety streamer, great content creator. Please be sure to check him out. Huge friend of the lodge, if you can't tell already. Andy, thank you for
Being
coming
here.
on and sharing the love. Yeah, and thank
Yeah.
you all for watching.
Yeah. Thanks for having me again. This was fantastic. So.
All righty, ladies, gentlemen, sickos, and normies. Until next time, stay safe and be good.